Let's rewind the clock. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention today. What I really want to talk about is how we are applying Edge AI solutions to automate a lot of industrial IoT. So Digi is an industrial IoT company. We've been around since 1985, so going on almost 30 years. We have tens of millions of devices out there across a whole lot of industries, and we have both gateways and cloud services. So we've seen a very broad spectrum of the industrial IoT world, and our position in that is we service the manufacturers of this technology who go on and sell it to various vertical industries and enterprises. And so when we're looking at AI, we're looking how can we create a tool set that unlocks the potential of our manufacturers to accelerate adoption and accelerate the number of devices and the number of use cases they can put in the market. And we've been in the LoRaWAN space for 11 of those years. Myself, I founded a LoRaWAN company just when it was kind of new and shiny, and we became part of Digi 3 years ago. And we're really excited to take a global company like Digi with the technology that we brought and then moving it into the AI age. So kind of getting into what is the current state of our ecosystem. And this is probably a little bit of a pedestrian history lesson, but I kind of think it's important to say where we are today to kind of figure out where we're going in the next few years. So we're blessed at this point, almost 10 years worth of LoRa Alliance. We have a very mature LoRaWAN standard. We've kind of solved the basics of LPWAN connectivity. We have a thriving ecosystem built around that standard, and we have lots and lots of adopters. 2 years ago, people would ask me, so what are you going to use? You're going to use Sigfox, or you're going to use LoRaWAN, and there was all these other technical questions of which standard you were going to use, and now it's very simple. Are you going to use Cellular? Are you going to use LoRaWAN? We're able to kind of solve that problem, and we've done that with a mature ecosystem. We've figured out how to make most devices work with most things, and you've heard from a lot of people today. You've seen the product wall. You've seen all of these great innovations. We've really figured out how to get that network layer running. And so now we have an absolute ton of devices. We have thousands and thousands of devices across a thriving vendor ecosystem, 200-300 vendors, and we have lots of deployments. And what that's going to lead to is inevitably, with every technology, when we get to this point, we've figured out how to make a temperature and humidity sensor 10 years ago. Easy problem. And now we're getting into the very hard problems. In order to compete, we're not fighting around how we set up a network. We're looking to compete and acquire customers through ever more capable devices. A lot more compute in those devices. We're generating a lot more data. And that is going to lead to much higher complexity. So those devices are going to have larger engineering teams. They're going to have a lot more testing. They're going to have a lot more features and functionality. So what this leads to is a general increase in the investment needed to bring any of these more modern, more complex devices to market if we follow the traditional method of building a product that we've probably done for the last 10 or 20 years. And then secondarily to that, when you add complexity to make a product more complex and more feature-rich. At manufacturing, when you go to deploy that product, scaling becomes operationally intensive. You need more people, more processes, more training, and more systems. And that is where the advantages of AI could really come in on the edge to help offset some of those things. And what I wanted to talk about to really hammer home the piece that's important is scaling, because we can all build prototypes. Prototypes have been easy for many years. So as Elon Musk said, prototype is easy. Manufacturing is where it's at. That's the hard problem to solve. And so when we look at those key challenges in scaling, if we step aside, manufacturing, number one, we've really solved key management in LoRaWAN. So all those little join keys, making sure they all dynamically connect, turn it on, away it goes. So security and key management, done deal. But device behavior is the big challenge. So device behaviors are the configurations, all of the features we spent eons building. We took all of the knowledge and know-how from our engineers, from our customers, from our field trials, and we put it through a big funnel. And then we magically came up with a configuration for a device that was the best average we could get to meet the needs of that industry. And so that becomes ever more complex. And we get to a point where we go, well, there's just too many things in that to work. So we're going to have to split our products. And now we make 2 SKUs. And then, oh, we want to go to that adjacent industry, but those customers are a little more different. So we get to the next and the next and the next. And all of a sudden, our manufacturing starts to get out of control. Then we get to deployment. The more things we pack into a product, the more things we have to train our customers, our field services, our support services on how to operate. And at some point, we end up running out of field services engineers. Like one of the biggest problems we have in industrial IoT is around about 60% of all of our field services people and things like oil and gas and water are retiring before 2030. So what are we going to do in 5 years when everyone says, sorry, I'm retired and there's no new blood to come and configure it? How are we going to train all those resources? And we believe one of the best answers is eliminate the problem in the first place. We can find a way to mitigate all of that training, provisioning, and complexity in the products. Then we have an opportunity to continue to grow and grow without being gated by the resources we have to deploy in the field. And the third challenge is in operations. So when we build these things, we get them running, they're all provisioned, they're going, how do we keep them running in the traditional manner? And what we've done for years, we've used cloud technology. We've just sent packet after packet after packet. All of our data engineers say, the more you send, the more I can do for you in the cloud. And so that drives our battery costs up. That drives cost for replacement. That drives a whole range of network utilization that may not entirely be necessary, and then we're kind of stuck. LoRaWAN, great thing that it is kind of slow. 1 message every 3 seconds per device. It doesn't exactly lead to a plethora of really high performance use cases. If we move more of the intelligence to the device, if we did that traditional method, then we have a lot of complexity we're asking our engineers to build. If we start to do that with AI, which is my next slide, we'll figure out there's actually an entirely new way to deploy complexity that we can do that's operationally less intensive. We can support extremely high performance use cases, and we can do that with a fraction of the network traffic and the cost associated with that. And so, number one, Edge AI and R&D. So in the development world, one of the things we're going to do is automate a lot of features. Here and today, we will build feature after feature. A customer says, I need this. We put it through that traditional pipeline we talked about before. But now we have this new opportunity. We can train versus code. So today, coding's key. Your coders build everything that you ask, and they take a certain amount of time, and they need a lot of institutional knowledge. So they need to know what's happening in that vertical. They need specialized knowledge. They need to understand algorithms, protocols. And so if you're building for a specific industrial use case like pressure monitoring, you can't exactly take that skill set and say, I'm now going into the water management business. Those things are not very portable without a lot of experience and a lot of people resources. So when we go into the Edge AI world, we have a highly repeatable process. If you just have the data, you can make a model and have absolutely no institutional knowledge on how that thing works. Some call it black magic, the dark arts. But at the end of the day, you're able to build amazingly complex products with a somewhat opaque model built into it that's the click of a button away. 1 click to train it, 1 click to deploy it, and a smaller amount of effort to tune a model than it is to go out there and build algorithms and code from scratch. On the manufacturing side, notice that we've only got one thing to deal with now, key management. When we start building devices based on Edge AI, that comes pre-trained and pre-organized for that whole range of use cases that you fed it data for. So if I have a firmware image that had training data from all of those different customers. It had, something from my water, something from my pressure sensor, something from my health monitor. There's a very wide array of data types that we can put into it. So the moment you manufacture it, you don't need to go and configure it for all these different default configurations. You don't need to set it up for these pieces because it kind of learns its purpose in life from the code that you trained it with. So we've just eliminated a whole swath of SKU bloat in our manufacturing. And then when it comes to deployment, provisioning, we can't avoid the three golden rules of provisioning. You know, we need to do at least two of them. We need to identify it. You're never going to get away from the point that all devices have to be identified in a way that a customer cares about, so we keep that. You need to locate it because everybody enjoys a dot on a map. So identity and location are just kind of universal, but when it comes to purpose, purpose is now auto-configurable. Where you maybe had 50, 60, 70 configuration items, you might now have one or two. You know, turn this into a water meter. Okay, that's my one configuration item, or turn this into a pressure sensor. So we're able to eliminate an entire swath of effort. So now when we start looking at the resources that go and deploy that in the field, that's a resource that carries a wrench and a tool belt and has absolutely no USB cables, no Bluetooth application to bootstrap that device. All of those things are eliminated from the supply chain. All of those things are eliminated from you as an OEM needing to go out there, grow, and scale your product because you're able to do that through training it versus coding it and putting all of those subsequent pieces on the back end. And finally, with operations, when you've got to operate that infrastructure, you can now do it at an incredibly high rate. So if you put all of your intelligence off the cloud, strung out by a tiny little piece of LoRaWAN wireless, well, now you've got all of that software sitting on your device connected with high-performance interfaces directly to all your sensors. So if you want to do sub-second monitoring, if you want to do predictive maintenance on machine vibration and then actually execute that, you no longer need cellular networks or fiber connectivity or all the high bandwidth systems that you previously had to use. You can now match a low power, low bandwidth network with the power of an Edge AI unit to do use cases that were essentially impossible to do in narrow band networks before. And so combining that with the ability to do local actions, because you can have these things smart enough to do that, and simplified cloud management, Edge AI is something that will unleash a lot of power in your devices. So this is something that Digi has been exploring for some months. It's a solution set that we're applying to our entire portfolio, and we're going to build Edge AI on top of LoRaWAN to kind of simplify a lot of that application space to enable companies to build quicker, to scale faster, and operate all of this infrastructure at a much, much lower intensity of cost and effort. And you know, our view, at the end of the day, you need more AI in your life. And we think this is going to be a big wave of innovation for our industry, and we think Edge AI and LoRaWAN are kind of the perfect match for the next generation of devices. Thank you very much. I think I'm out of time, and I appreciate your patience.